2025 at 10:30. Do we have any applications for attending meeting via video link?
Nil, Madam Chair.
Apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Stoltz.
That's correct.
Shall we move that? Yep.
And it should be pointed out, Madam Chair, that the Mayor is in attendance, and given that Councillor Stoltz is not here, the Mayor will have voting rights.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor McGill to second. Thank you, Councillor Clout. All moved. Thank you. Okay, any public participation? I have two here. Disclosure of interest? None?
I believe there was one that Councillor McGill wanted to raise.
Yeah, just when we get to consideration of the motel in Murrurundi, my partner, Julie Wesky, was one of the people who lodged a submission.
Okay.
So just note that.
Okay. Public participation, I have two. I have Mr. Roger Saunders and Mr. Stephen Gowland. Site inspections, none, and business items, none. Oh, we've got a few of those actually. Shall we do the public participation first?
Yep.
Well, shall we go alphabetically, gentlemen? Yep. So can we go with Stephen Gowland first, please? So you'll have 5 minutes, and at 4 minutes you will get a lovely resounding bell.
So this encroachment would have significant impact on 3 nearby businesses and the public in general, as it would restrict vehicular movements. Large semi-trailers and other delivery trucks access this laneway to deliver goods to the rear of the Merriwa IGA store. Also, heavy B-double vehicles utilise the laneway to make deliveries to elders through their gate in the laneway. Further, People's Transport utilises this laneway to access their yard and maintenance shed with a B-double heavy transport vehicle. In addition to this blockage causing an obstruction to delivery vehicles, shoppers who utilise this laneway to access parking at the rear of IGA would find difficulty navigating around the development. Occasional congestion occurs in this area at present. There is even potential for the narrowing of the laneway in this location to impede the access of vehicles visiting the proposed motel units, the way they turn into that unit. Although the subject lot 18, extends across the unnamed laneway, this thoroughfare has been used to access business in that area for over 100 years, and it's considered part of the laneway. This fact was indicated to Council in MDPA's submission of 12th of January 2024, wherein it was recommended that Council seek agreement with the proponent to subdivide off the section of the lot as a laneway. However, that advice appears to have been ignored. So on page 107 of this meeting's agenda, the response to the laneway ownership raised by MDPA reads, "The access lane is part of the public road network and therefore available to be used by the development for legal access. The road is suitable to service the proposed development." So that comment completely ignores the issue of securing the future of that parcel of land as a road. When the owner of the land, who is proposing this development, bought the land, they would have known that the road is there. The original application was restricted to the fenced area and didn't encroach on the road. As the laneway has been in existence for such a long period of time and consistently used by the public for access, the law considers that part of the lot as a public road. We'd like the council to take action to formalise this fact by having a proponent or the owner subdivide off that part of their lot that constitutes the laneway and to classify it as a roadway. However, if council approves this development application today and structures are built on that 3.55 metre wide encroachment, the option to formally declare it as a roadway may be lost forever. So in consideration of this information and in the interest of retaining unimpeded access to the businesses who utilise the unnamed laneway and to the members of the public who also use the laneway, we ask council to refuse the development application as it stands.
Thank you, Mr Gallant. Any questions?
It's through you, Madam Chair. So Steve, lot 18, or Matt, you may be able to answer it. If they buy that block of land and that goes over that laneway, by law, they own the block. Even though it's going over the laneway, they still own that piece of land. This map here, is that laneway still going to be opened to the public?
Through you, Madam Chair, yeah, that's correct. So there's still 6 metres wide of
Yep.
laneway at the back of this development.
And that will be used for the public?
Yes,
Use.
over private land.
And that's very clear in that the public will still be able to drive over the public land.
Correct.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We'll show that on the screen.
Through you, Madam Chair. So it'll be privately owned, but the public can use it. Is that what you're saying? Or do you mean that it's publicly owned and the public can use it?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's privately owned at the moment, always has been and will continue, but they're maintaining a 6 metre wide access across the land so the public can continue to use it. But there is no formal right of way or anything like that in place that I understand, but the owner may be willing to provide that at some stage. We can't actually impose that on this application.
Through you, Chair. So there's no easement held by the IGA or any of the other buildings in question?
As far as I'm aware, there's not, but I'd have to double check and take that on notice.
So were you aware that there'd still be a laneway there, or were you thinking there wasn't going to be a laneway?
We're aware that it's a 10 metre wide laneway, so it's going to be reduced by 3.55 metres, which makes it too narrow for access with heavy vehicles such as semi-trailers going to IGA, B doubles going to Elders, and B doubles going into people's transport there. It's also, I mean, the 10 metre wide laneway, the actual carriageway is even more narrow than that. So shoppers going into IGA often have difficulty sort of just passing on that laneway in its current width. If we reduce 10 metres down to 6 metres or less, you're going to have a whole lot of other problems. It's going to look ridiculous, and anybody who sees that is not going to be impressed.
So your major concern here is the laneway, correct?
That's right.
Correct. Okay.
So we're asking council to refuse the application in its current form. If the proponent was to move the development back in behind the fence, which is where the original application was, we wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay. I think the main thing here is that it's private land, all of it. So that's the tricky part.
However, it's been used as a road for a
I
long
know,
time,
yeah.
and under law, that's considered a public road.
Yeah. Okay.
Just through you, Madam Chair, can you clarify that, Mr Pringle? I don't believe that would be correct.
Through you, Madam Chair, there is case law where if a private land has been used for a considerable period of time, then it can be considered that it's, you know, if it's used for public purposes, can be considered that it's available for the public. So there is case law in relation to that. But really I guess that's up for a court to make that determination.
Okay, I've got more questions when we get to it.
Through you, Chair. Is it 2-lane access in that laneway now? And if it went to 1 lane, is there another way to get out?
There's no other access. Yeah, it's two-way road. It's two-way laneway. It's like a dead end road. It's a no-through road.
So through you, Madam Chair. So IGA's truck won't be able to get in effectively.
No.
So we're actually, if this development goes ahead in the current state, the supermarket won't be able to restock because of the extra width being given to this development.
That's correct, or else the semi-trailers will have to pull up in the middle of Beddington Street, blocking traffic. No, it's unacceptable.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir. Okay, so I'd like to hear from Mr. Roger Saunders, please. As with Mr. Galland, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'm just the manager at Marywall Elders, so we lease that land right beside basically here. And we do rely on this laneway here for our B doubles to come in and semis. So if this was to come over 3.5 metres, there's just no way for a B double to actually go through there because we're too close to this far side fence here. So, and then also blocking the laneway that another car comes out IGO. So, and so it's just going to be congested area. But as Steve was saying, like the previous owner was Robert Marchese. He had it for about 12 years. His understanding was that the lady before him actually gave the right of way to the council to use that piece of the land because it was just a dead end really at that time. So as far as we understand, that is being given to you guys from the previous owner.
Do we have any knowledge of that, Mr.?
Through Madam Chair, no, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, is that through the chair, Miss? No? Okay.
I was just suggesting that the record may be somewhere in the old Marywell Council records.
Okay, so I think what you're saying, has anyone any questions for Mr. Saunders?
Is there any other access for you guys? No.
Only from the front, but
Which,
then,
yeah, has its problems and
Has-
that's why it's
yeah.
used through the back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's-
this development would really impinge on two quite large businesses in Marywall.
yes.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, thank you so much. Yep. Mr. Pringle, would you like to speak to those things, please? I think we all consider this as read, so I'd like to hear from Mr. Pringle.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I guess the recommendation before you today is to approve the development application. However, based on the information that's just been provided, the committee could make a recommendation to defer the application pending the submission of further information to address the concerns. That is an option for you. However, the plans do show there is a 6 metre wide access provided at the back of the property to provide access. However, that's not formalised, and there is a garden along that back boundary as well, which could be an impediment to access. So,
Okay, thank you. We actually will get to that. That's our second item, so we can open up more discussion at that point. Okay, so I'd just like us to cast your eye to ECSC 0.03.1 Sustainable Environment Plan 2025. Could I have a mover? Thank you.
Moved with an amendment that we add a .7 to the waste section for exploring the feasibility of a silage wrap recycling program.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
So, second.
Could you take that point over to, so they could write it in? You've got it there?
I'll write it down. I'll read it.
Would you like to speak to it too, Councillor Clout?
Yeah, I just think it's something that this Shire uses a lot of silage wrap, especially increasingly with droughts and stuff. And it'll both improve our air quality by people not burning it, and it'll also reduce landfill by people not dumping it in the tip. So I think it's something we need to at least explore and get a bit of a costing on. Thanks.
Could we just have that written up so we can look at what we're voting on, please? Don't run, it's all right. We don't want you.
Could we just add 0.7 on to the waste section for exploring the feasibility of a silage wrap recycling program?
Okay, Mr. Pringle, would you like to speak to this at all? I think we've read it all, but if you'd like to speak to it at all?
Madam Chair, I have nothing to add, but yeah, happy with the proposed amendment.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Would you like to vote on it? Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, if I
Councillor McGill?
may, please. Just two things. Our neighbours have just introduced a policy regarding solar panels going back into waste stream. I'm wondering whether we should be considering incorporating that in here. And the other thing on page 7, water quality actions, develop a long-term 20-year plan, master plans. Can we be a bit more ambitious? 20 years is a long time to develop master plans for the rivers in the Shire.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it's obviously to develop the plan now, but with a 20-year, obviously looking at 20 years into the future. Councillor, are you suggesting that that should be extended for longer than 20 years or?
Yeah, I just think we can do some things quicker. That's all.
Yeah. That's fine. Yep.
We can take that on notice. Anything else? Shall we vote on that? All in favour? Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so the next is ECSC 0.03.2. It's the car wash and cafe. Could I have a mover, please? So moved, seconded. So moved by Councillor Clout, seconded by Councillor McGill. That's not always meaning we're for it. It just means we have an opportunity to speak to it. Who would like to speak to it?
Yeah, I just think this is not the right spot for such a development. I think a car wash in effectively the main street is not really in keeping with how we want the newly renovated main street to look. And there has to be a better spot that could be located slightly off the main street for this. Thanks.
Anybody else? Councillor McGill?
I'm just concerned about the side access to the site impinging upon the fire brigade. And it's frontage to Kelly Street. It doesn't do anything to actually increase the conservation zone in any way. It just sort of really ignores what's there already. So no, it's an interesting development, but I don't know that that's a spot for it.
If I could speak to that, I remember we denied this last time because, well, there wasn't, that was the recommendation because it wasn't all in order. And I believe at the time we said to read the room, it was Kelly Street was all about footpaths and walking and cafes, but I tend to agree. And also there is an issue with car parking, and we don't need any more congestion on what will be a very busy intersection. But anyway, we can vote to see where we go with that. So Councillor Collison, would you like to say something?
Madam Chair, just a question, Matt, I sent it somewhere, the waste water goes just into our waste.
That's correct. There'd be a trade waste agreement, so that any wastewater would have to go into the sewer. However, I understand with these car washers, they recycle most of their water, but obviously some would go into the sewer as well.
Also, if one is to not recommend this, there needs to be a reason given.
We'll leave that,
So-
we'll leave a resolution.
Yes.
Probably foreshadowing, so that we know if this gets defeated, we've got a resolution ready to go.
Okay, so do we put a foreshadowing?
Well, you need to call on one of the councillors, if there's a councillor that wishes to oppose it.
Yeah.
To actually get that foreshadowed motion now.
Okay, so if someone is wishing to oppose it, would you like to?
I'm happy to foreshadow a motion that we defer this to work out a more suitable, I don't know, do we defer it? No. Okay, it's just the wrong location, basically. I'm happy to defer it that to foreshadow that if this fails, it's just the applicant needs to be told it's the wrong location.
Yep. A concern over parking as well.
Yep.
Yep. Okay,
Madam Chair, if there's any other reasons that we can add to that from the committee. So I know that parking is a concern, the suitability of the site
and
is
also
a concern.
in my belief, the waste Yep, it's
waste,
just,
right, okay.
yep, and also has been spoken about in these documents that there is a noise concern.
Right,
So I just don't think that for the residents in the nearby area that it would be very suitable either.
You could add also its impact on the Central Scone Conservation Area and its impact on fire and rescue.
Okay, so those four? Those against?
Hang on,
No.
you got to vote
Yep.
on the original motion
Yes,
first.
yes.
Yeah, and I think Morris was going to speak.
Did you want to?
I certainly agree with some of the comments. I think the positioning is wrong. But there's not a lot in there that I can see that can stop this from going through. I don't want to be challenging the courts again. We come up with some good reasonings there, but is that enough? I'm a little bit hesitant. Thank you.
Well, that's the privilege of being able to vote, I guess. So who was for? And who was against the original motion? Councillor Collison, you're for the original, so Councillor Collison for, and the rest against. So the foreshadow, so do we need a?
Yeah, so that's defeated. Now you need to go to the foreshadow.
Yes, so who would be your seconded? So for the foreshadow? Against the four? So for is Clout, McGill and McPhee, against is Collison. So we now have ECSC 0.03.3 Development Application 168/2023 Tourist and Visitor Accommodation. So this is in Merriwell. We had to speak to this. Could I please have a mover?
Moved.
Councillor Collison, seconder. Councillor Clout, who would like to speak to this?
Madam Chair, Matt, I think this is important. Oh, I think this is important to go through, and it seems like that we could probably make this happen by sorting this laneway out. Is there any way of putting a condition there the laneway stays the width it is? Would they be happy with that, do you believe, or we can't impose that?
through the chair, the only way that the committee could do that is to grant partial approval to the development. So you could exclude that last unit potentially, which is unit 1 that encroaches into the existing laneway. So a partial approval is possible under the Act.
Right, so through you, Madam Chair, again, so that last unit would have to go to make the road reserve legal.
Correct. Yeah. The other option is to defer the application now and ask the applicant to come back and address that issue. If that's the issue for the committee.
Can I foreshadow a motion that we defer this pending further discussion on the laneway with the developer?
Well, that's, Madam Chair, that's more or less my motion would be to, I think this needs to go through, but go back to the plan and see whether they'd be happy to do that. So is there any need for a foreshadow?
Sorry, Madam Chair. The Mayor has actually moved the recommendation, which doesn't allow for the further variation.
Yeah,
I mean, you
right.
could do it with an amendment. That's probably the easiest way, just.
Well, I'd be
rather-
happy with that, is
Yeah.
to move the recommendation with an amendment
Yeah.
of going back to the applicant about somehow leaving that laneway, the width it is today. Make sense?
Yep, so we're happy with that amendment? To defer?
It's deferred.
Are we happy to defer that for further discussion on the laneway?
I'm
So we
happy
have
to
to move-
defer at this stage,
So we
yes.
have Councillor Collison with the amendment and Councillor McGill as a seconder. Anyone wish to speak to that? Is that clear, Danielle? Yep.
Can I just feel what it is we're doing? What was the amendment?
The amendment was to the applicant regarding the laneway and they can take on that one.
Yeah.
I think also it's important that we support the applicant because it's a very worthy development, but we also have to ensure that it doesn't encroach upon the livelihoods of those who've been there, or who work there. So are we happy with that? So I'd like to vote those for. Unanimously for. None against. We now have ECSC 03.4, and just for those who were speaking, so this will go to the ordinary council meeting where it will be either supported or not. Okay. So this is the development application number 225/2022, 20-room motel with managers accommodation, office, cafe, laundry and storage. Councillor McGill, you have spoken of an interest. Are you going to be withdrawing your voting on this, or will you be voting?
I don't think the interest would impinge upon my ability to vote at this stage.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, councillor Clout, a seconder, councillor Collison. Would anyone like to speak to this?
Yeah, so Murrurundi is converting from a railway town to a highway town by the looks of it. More and more of this sort of development. There are currently Murrurundi and within 10, 15 k's, there are currently 142 beds available. There's two motels in town, 3 hotels, and a number of B&Bs and Airbnbs and further out. So in terms of demand, one of the motels in town at the moment seem to be largely accommodating contractors through ARTC. Another one seems to be contacting people who are working out at the abattoir. So both of the motels have good occupancy rates at the moment. The caravan park owner would rather this didn't happen, but he understands the realities of life. But he's turning what was a slow business into a very good business now, and we in town support him deeply. We've seen other developments in Murrurundi where conditions have been placed and they've not been enforced. We all worry about these air conditioning units that are facing straight into the neighbours. The 4 to 5 dB on top of existing noises still puts it up at about 65 to 70 dB when you put it on top of road noises. It's a really inefficient design in that respect. I've stayed in this motel all over Australia. They're horrible brick boxes. They're constructed in such a way that you have to have air conditioning because you can never open the windows. And then that is now going to impinge upon the neighbours' ability to have a nice peaceful night because they're going to have 10 air conditioners facing them. I think that needs a lot of work before we could even approve that. Side access, coming down the hill, B-doubles, their brakes are hot, they're coming down there and suddenly there's someone there lobbed trying to turn right into the premises. It has a risk factor attached to it. There's one tree on site that's going. It's a beautiful ironbark and it has no development, it has no protection order. We understand that. The community wishes this wasn't happened, but will accept it for what it is. But it really is an outsider putting something in our town without any discussion with the town. We don't predict that there'll be any money staying in the town. Most of this will go straight back out again. It's not the best development, but it's the one that we've got.
Would you like to finish up, councillor Clout? No? I think there would have, obviously you would have, it's a new build, so there are certainly going to be regulations which are a lot more stringent than I know the ones you're talking about, the motels that were probably built in the 80s. Mr. Pringle, would you like to just talk to the concern of the noise and I mean, these days there are so many regulations around heat and cooling. I'd just like to have maybe you speak to that, please.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I was just having a look at the conditions of consent to see if there was a condition in relation to attenuation of any noise from air conditioner units. Well, I couldn't see one there. So one thing we could do is recommend a condition of consent that addresses that issue to ensure that any, sorry?
There's a 4 or 5 dB above background noise requirement in there somewhere.
Is there? Right. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just couldn't see it. So there is a requirement that it complies with, that air conditioners comply with the relevant standards. And that as a condition of consent, that's something that's enforceable. I do note there is no dwelling directly adjacent to this site either. If you have a look at the site plans.
Yeah, that's what, through you, Madam Chair, that's what I was going to ask. On the map, it looks like there's one dwelling to the right of the development, which I suppose might hear air conditioners, but it's not directly like right on the border either. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll just bring up the.
There's one residence to the east and to the west, it's a vacant block of land.
Through you, Madam Chair, I guess with the combination of the fact there's no dwelling directly adjacent to this, and with conditions of consent to attenuate any noise impacts, I think our view is the air conditioning, any potential impacts from air conditioning noise is, we can manage.
Madam Chair, it's just a comment. I just can't work out why this wouldn't bring economy into the town of Miranda. I mean, if you've got a caravan, you go to the caravan park, the motels are booked out for abattoirs, workers, etc. First thing these people are going to do is probably go and have a meal. You can't have a meal in a motel. And the air conditioners is irrelevant because as I said, there's no adjoining close by houses, so.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we've all spoken to it.
So just clarification for the mayor there, they're actually proposing to put a cafe on the front of this in terms of meals.
Shouldn't be speaking again, but that's economy to the town.
Okay, so shall we vote for those who are voting for? So it's Collison, Cloud, McPhee against McGill. Okay. I believe that is the end of our agenda items. Yep, so we close the meeting at 11:02. Thank you very much.